Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. Less than 40 days stand between us and another season of Purdue football. You've heard from the Big 12, you've heard from the SEC, and you've heard from the ACC. But this week, it's time for Big 10 Media Days, as the unofficial kickoff of the season is finally here. All 14 programs will be represented this week, and we'll talk about the outlook of their seasons as we prepare for Big Ten football in the 2022 season. Today, we're going to have a Big Ten-centric episode. We'll be joined by Brett Ciancia of Pick 6 Previews, one of the best in the business when it comes to previewing college football. He'll discuss the conference and his outlook on the Big Ten with us. I'll jump in with some of my thoughts, what I'm most looking forward to this week at Media Days. I'm really excited for this episode. We are getting into talking season, and that is always welcome after a long summer of nothing. I think you're really going to like this. Let's hop on in. But first, if you don't already, be sure to follow the show on Twitter. We're at Boilers Beyond. We will have everything from Big Ten Media Days this week. I'll be watching live on Big Ten Network as Jeff Brohm gives his opening remarks and answers questions, as well as Purdue's 3 players they're bringing. So join the conversation there with Media Days. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I've said before, if all goes to plan, we will not miss a week until the end of basketball season. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss anything. And finally, hey, share the show. If you've got a friend who is looking to get ready for the football season and needs to get some Purdue-centric coverage, send them our way. We always appreciate when you guys help tell friends and help grow the show. That's how we do it here. So thank you so much to all of you who are listening. We'll jump right in. Big Ten Media Days this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, from Lucas Oil Stadium down in Indianapolis. The second straight year that the Big Ten is doing them there. Previously, they'd been in Chicago for forever, really, for a long time. But in Indianapolis now, a shorter drive for Purdue's guys. Jeff Brohm will open up the podium on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. He will be joined by Aiden O'Connell, Payne Durham, and Jalen Graham down in Indianapolis as Purdue's player representatives. You won't hear from them at the podium, but you'll hear plenty of conversation with those 3 as well. And look, it's going to be an exciting media days to kick off an exciting season because there are so many storylines in the Big Ten this season. You just look back last year, Jim Harbaugh and Michigan finally break through. They beat Ohio State. They make the playoff. Don't need to talk about their playoff performance all that much, but that was massive for them and for the conference. Michigan State broke through, winning 10 games in year 2 under Mel Tucker. That was huge. How does the state of Michigan respond after an incredible banner year in 2021? The Buckeyes look absolutely loaded. Is anyone going to stop them? How about Penn State? They're not happy with the last few years. James Franklin just 500 over his past 2 seasons, got a big extension. And then you look out west, and it's a crowded field. Outside of Purdue and maybe Nebraska, does anyone out west feel good about their quarterback situation? No team is without a question or two that could prove to be truly make or break. That includes Purdue. That's going to make this division fascinating because even though Purdue has the quarterback edge, other teams have advantages elsewhere. It's really, really open out west. Going to be fascinating. But instead of sitting here and breaking down the entire league myself, I wanted to bring on a guest, Brett Ciancia. He has been studying the Big Ten for months at this point to get ready for the season, and he will join me here to get you ready for what's to come. All right, Brett Ciancia, the head guy behind Pick 6 Previews, one of the leaders in terms of preview magazines in college football, joins us today. Brett, congratulations on getting your preview done this year and out for the general public to purchase.
Yeah, Jordan, thanks for having me, and thanks for that. It's been a grind ever since the confetti fell on the Alabama versus Georgia national title stage. It's you hunkered down doing the next year's book. So, head coach calls, coordinator calls, spring games, running my numbers, watching game tape, and writing this thing. It's all 66 Power 5 teams, and it's a one-man show. It's just me. So, it's been crazy with the transfer portal, but yeah, we'll get into it. I'm excited to talk some Purdue here, talk some Big Ten, and thanks for having me on.
Of course, we appreciate you coming on. We'll talk all things Big Ten here with you today, but this is a Purdue podcast, so let's start with the Boilermakers. What do you think of Jeff Brohm's 6th Purdue team coming into this season?
Well, I think I'll start with his 5th team. Last year was an impressive year, kind of a breakthrough. After back-to-back losing seasons, they surged into the top 25, first time since 2007, notched a 9-win season, first time since 2003, and they really did it in Purdue style. When you think of Purdue over the years, those high-powered passing attacks from the Joe Tiller era, the cradle of quarterbacks legacy. So they did it with an aerial assault, one of the most pass-heavy teams in America. And Jeff Brohm, he found something that worked, and he doubled down on it. It was an unbelievable passing attack. He had the headliner wins there, the 2 top 5 wins, and they've got the big bowl win. So impressive season last year. That's always a starting point. Then when you look forward to 2022, I think a lot of that will continue. It's just a very tough division, one of the hardest to forecast, the Big Ten West, because almost every team over there is surging in the right direction via higher recruiting rankings, coaching stability. The coaches are all starting to click over there, and it's just a tough division. And I see this division get hated on across the country by other national analysts. They think that the East, the top 4 of the East, is the only thing the Big Ten has to offer. But I really respect the Big Ten West, so much so that I have Purdue 5th in the West. It was hard to put anyone 5th, but nationally 37th. So even though you're 5th in that division, still strong enough for a top 40 and could surprise some folks.
Looking at your preview of the West here, you've got Wisconsin 1, which I don't think anyone could complain about. They've been the class of the Big Ten West ever since the division split into East and West. But you've got Nebraska 2 coming off a 3-9 season. Talk a little bit about why you have the Huskers that high.
Yeah, so one of the assets of my book is the game grader formula. It's an analytical measure. It looks a little bit deeper than the box score, a little bit deeper than the final score. Trying to find some outliers, just like Nebraska. I think they're kind of the case study of game grader, where yes, they went 3-9, but they actually had a plus scoring differential over the whole year. And even though they were 1-8 in the Big Ten, it was exactly 239 points scored, 239 points allowed. And deeper than that, it was 8 one-score losses, an NCAA record, meaning they were extremely close last year. And the formula reflects that. So even though they were 3-9, they were actually 34th overall nationally in my game grader formula. For example, Northwestern was also 3-9, just to paint the picture that all 3-9s aren't equal. They were down at 60th out of 66. So this team was really close. They've been close for a couple years. I don't know how Nebraska fans do it. It's so frustrating to watch them play because they have all the talent in the world. They bring games late into the fourth quarter and they choke. I think they were 0-14 on game winning or game tying drives last year. It's just, so basically one way to look at it, if you want to bring it back into a casino or gambling aspect, it's like you're at the roulette table and red has hit 20 times in a row. I know it's still a 50-50 shot, but like, you just think black's got to hit. So this team has been cursed for so many years with turnover luck, insanely crazy endings to games. But on a roster note, I think they really amplified their roster here with a top 10 transfer class. They solidified the quarterback spot with Casey Thompson, the Big 12's passing leader last year. A huge edge rusher, O'Shawn Mathis from TCU. And I think you're going to have a solid defense again. They were quietly a good defense last year. But yeah, so a lot to consider with Nebraska. It's more so just that they were a historically good 3-9 team. I know that sounds laughable almost to say out loud, but when you look at their games, they really could have and should have been more like a 7 or 8 win team.
Purdue has an interesting relationship with Minnesota and Iowa because Jeff Brohm is 1-4 against the Golden Gophers. Only win came in his first season, but he is 4-1 against Iowa and has really, really done well against the Hawkeyes. Talk a little bit about those two schools and how you see Purdue stacking up to them this year.
Yeah, well, Brahms really got Kirk Ferentz's number. And last year was a testament to that because this was one of the best Iowa teams that he's had over there. They were excellent on defense. They led the nation, I think, in interceptions, and special teams are incredible for them. But really, Purdue flipped the script. It was all David Bell, the Hawkeye killer, did it again. I think it was 240 yards by him, and really successful game right there. But for 2022, I actually have them in a virtual tie for third place. Again, this second place through fifth place in the West, it can go any way. I mean, that was laboring over this pick more than any other conference or division in America, really. I hated putting anyone fifth, and it's just so happened to be Purdue. But between these two, a dead heat for third place. With Iowa, you have the same thing as usual. It's an incredible defense. One could be his best defensive line he's had there, at least the deepest for sure. And you have a couple playmakers coming back in the secondary. But really the issue is on offense, where they're really stuck in the mud. It's also incredible in this transfer portal era and in this crazy roster shift era that they still have the same quarterback battle for a third straight year. It's Spencer Petras and Padilla there, and neither one has emerged. And you watch Iowa play; they're just stuck in the mud offensively. They also lose Tyler Lindenbaum, their Remington Award-winning center, and another interior lineman. So, I think their offense really limits their ceiling. They're going to be in a lot of close games with the defense, but I just don't trust that offense at all. And then flipping the script over to Minnesota, much like Purdue, another breakout season last year. They got to 9 wins, got the bowl game, really re-solidified PJ Fleck. I actually had a chance to speak with Coach Fleck as part of my head coaching calls. And, he was honest. He said, you know what, my persona, my strategy, all my stuff is kind of different. And I know it won't apply to everybody. Not all recruits in the country want to come play for me, but for the 85 that do sign on, they love it. It works. It's a good team culture. And it was funny. He was going through all his team slogans with me. I think it was like a 45-minute call. Usually they're 15 minutes, but I enjoyed every second of it. He does things a lot differently than most. And for what it's worth, it's working up there for those 85 players. So, but for 2022, you have you're reuniting that 2019 offense that broke through, where you had Tanner Morgan at quarterback, Mo Ibrahim at running back, Chris Ottman-Bell at receiver, and then also their coordinator, Kurt Sriracha, comes back. After trying out Penn State, he comes back to Minnesota, and they're trying to reignite that offense. So I think they'll get it done. I think they'll be a solid team. Again, top 30 nationally, but some pieces have to be replaced on defense. So rebuilding the lines on both trenches. And still a solid team.
That sounds about right for PJ Fleck. He's certainly an interesting and polarizing guy. Rounding out the Big Ten West, any hope for the 2 Illinois schools? I know you have them slotted 6th and 7th over in the West.
Yeah, well, I see them trending in different directions, actually. I have Illinois 6th, and I see them really improving with Coach Bielema. A couple of reasons why. He finally shifted the focus back to in-state recruiting in the state of Illinois. The prior regime, Lovie Smith, they really ignored the home state. Incredibly, they went one signing class without a single Illinois prospect. I just don't know of any Power 5 team out there that doesn't sign at least one prospect from the home state. It was incredible. So he's bringing that back. He already has 11 commits in this next class from Illinois. But you saw them competitive last year, and that people might laugh at that, but it's big for Illinois to be competitive like that. They finished with a plus point differential in conference play for the first time in 10 years. So they're competitive. They beat Penn State, and that wasn't a fluke. I know it was 9 overtimes, but during that game, they rushed for like 400 yards all over Penn State. And it's kind of built in Bielema's image. It's a big offensive line, the power run game, what he's had success with at Wisconsin and tried to have success with at Arkansas. They bring in Tommy DeVito, an experienced transfer quarterback from Syracuse. And the defense started to trend up towards the second half of last year, too. So I see them on an upward trajectory. Meanwhile, with Northwestern, they've gone through an interesting couple of years where it's gone from they were last place, Then they were first place and won the West. And then they roller coastered again and did it again with last to first. I think you're in for a rare double last place finish in a row. They were last year, and I think they're going to finish last again. I just don't see any reason to move them out of last place. They were blown out in almost every contest last year. Serious issues on offense. There's just no playmakers on the outsides, and the offensive line was weak, getting a run push. Defensively, though, this is really where it fell off. They were notorious for grinding out close wins and winning in the red zone and on money downs like fourth down and third down. That went out the window last year when 51-year coordinator vet Mike Hankwitz retired, and they tried to overhaul the defense. It just collapsed entirely. So in a really tough division that doesn't get enough credit, I'm putting Northwestern 7th because the other 6 I can all see trending up.
If you had to pick one besides Wisconsin to break through and win the West this year, who are you going with?
I might go Iowa, and that might sound counterintuitive because I have them behind Nebraska, but I do think with Iowa, you have probably the best defense in the conference. So they have that side of the ball locked down. We know we're getting with Phil Parker, defensive coordinator. So I trust the defense. Iowa, if they could just unlock an offense, that's the biggest what if, but just imagine if Iowa comes out and they have a competent passing attack, they're getting a run push. I'm not talking a top 10 offense, but if they can crack the top 40, the top 25 as an offense, that becomes a very complete team and enough to win all those close margin games. So now, can they do that? I'm doubtful. That's why I have them down at third place. But if there were ever a team to jump out, if they could just fix that offense, you're talking about a serious contender.
I agree with you on Iowa's defense. They've got a great unit there. Over in the East, I think it goes without saying that Ohio State has the best offense in the Big Ten. The way I look at it, I think Ohio State is probably head and shoulders above everyone else as we sit here in the preseason. How do you see it? Is Ohio State, like the Vegas odds indicate, they're the heavy favorite? Is that how you see it as well to win the Big Ten overall?
Yeah, I do. I have them winning the Big Ten East, winning the Big Ten, and then returning back to the playoff. It's behind this offense. This offense I have graded as the number 1 in the country. They were number 1 last year in almost every one of my metrics, and I have the number 1 forecasted again this year because they bring back a freshman Heisman candidate, C.J. Stroud. They bring back Travion Henderson, could be the best running back in the country. And then you talk about the receiver stable. My gosh, even though they lose 2 first-rounders, they reload like no other. Jackson Smith and Jigba set the bowl record, put up 1,600 yards last year. He'll be the number 1 guy, but 5 stars everywhere. Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka, Julian Fleming. It's incredible. So they're going to put up a ton of points. That's not changing. What held them back last year was the defense, and specifically 2 times against power running attacks, Oregon and Michigan. And I think they're going to get that fixed. And a couple reasons why. I know you can just blanketly say that, but I'll give you 3 reasons. Number 1 is just the recruiting. The raw recruiting rankings point to it. They're on their own dynasty tier with Bama and Georgia there. So they have 5-star talent and 4-star talent waiting in the wings. Number 2, they bring back the 10th most returning production on defense. You just never see that from these powerhouse NFL draft programs where they cycle players so quickly. It's rare to bring back so many on one side of the ball. So it tells me they were a little bit young last year. They're all back on defense, veteran, more experienced. But really the key reason here is bringing in Jim Knowles to fix the defense. And, when Michigan ran all over them in November, Ryan Day cleared out the defensive staff and started from scratch, brought in Jim Knowles, who last year turned Oklahoma State, a program that used to be known for, air raids and winning 60-50. He turned them into the number 3 defense in America last year. So you bring in the brains, you have all the returning production and 5-star talent. I think the defense clicks and forms a complete team enough to get revenge on Michigan and win the conference.
Yeah, Purdue fans saw that Ohio State offense up close and personal last year over in Columbus, and that game got out of hand quickly. The other team in the East, though, that Purdue played last year and did really well with was Michigan State. And I kind of want to clump the 2 Michigan schools together because they both had some serious momentum, some really strong years last year. Michigan finally breaking through and getting to the playoff. Michigan State having a massive breakthrough year under Mel Tucker. Can those schools maintain the momentum that they built up last year?
Well, so here's where I like to point to my game grader formula is that they had similar records, Michigan and Michigan State. Last year, though, in the game grader formula, looks at yardage per play and all kinds of, it's opponent adjusted and all the metrics combined. Michigan was 4th nationally, and that makes sense. They're in the playoff. Michigan State was 25th nationally. So even with that 11-win record, they were all the way down at 25th out of 66 Power 5 teams. It tells me it was a lot of one-score games, which is true. Some flukiness, like that Nebraska win where they were losing. They didn't get a single first down in the second half, but they had a punt return, a fluky punt return to win it. Stuff like that. And, I'm not taking away, it was an incredibly special season, but we're talking about a 2022 season preview forward looking. I don't see that repeating for Michigan State. So I have them 4th in the Big Ten East behind Penn State and Michigan. Still good for 23rd overall nationally, but I think the more complete team you're looking at here is Michigan. It's interesting what they did is they kind of brought back the old Stanford power running game element that Jim Harbaugh had success with building Stanford up. The last couple of years before that, they called it speed in space. It was trying to be this, basically trying to be Ohio State with lesser athletes, and it just didn't work. So he doubled down on his old persona, the power run game, the power offensive lines. He put in a drill. I like this. He put in a drill that every single practice to end every single day at practice to end the show, he called it the Beat Ohio drill, where they would blast heavy metal music over the loudspeakers and just go one-on-one physicality, like goal line style. And, just to try and build up that persona. And really it came true. All those drills came true on the last Saturday in November, where it was literally just a 3-hour Beat Ohio drill running up and down. The Ohio State couldn't stop them. So long story short, they bring back that entire offensive line. You're going to see that physicality again. Both quarterbacks are back, and it's rare to be able to pull it off, but they do it. They use both quarterbacks effectively. Blake Corum back at running back, 5 stars at receiver. Now the defense does lose some draft picks and some starters. But again, they recruited a good enough clip that I think they'll be okay there. Enough to put them 2nd in the East.
Brett, you are in Pennsylvania. That's where you're based out of. And Purdue fans are chomping at the bit to get to September 1st, where they open up with Penn State on the Thursday night kickoff under the lights at Ross-Ade Stadium. Talk about the Nittany Lions. Is that a game that, Purdue's a slight underdog right now? Is that a game where Purdue can pull off a slight upset and really get some momentum going to start the year?
Well, it's absolutely possible. I like that you have the home field advantage because a season opener in Happy Valley is quite the event. So I'm no Penn Stater, but I talk to a lot of them around here. And, normally you'd think that a Purdue might be overlooked, but no, they have their eyes on Purdue. They know that this is a tough team. They saw them play last year. They are not overlooking that by any means. In fact, they're a little worried about it because they're scared their offense won't be able to keep pace. And it's like the 5th or 6th year under Sean Clifford at quarterback. They failed to get a run push last year. And this is an insane stat when you think of Penn State's history and their brutal rushing attacks over the years, their smash mouth style. They didn't have a single 100-yard back in a game last year. 13 games, 0 times did they get a 100-yard back. And so that's the first time in like 60 years over there at Penn State. So they want to get that offensive line fixed. They brought in 2 5-star running backs so that you're going to see some more explosion from them, I think. Now they do lose Jahan Dotson on the outside, who was kind of the do-it-all for them. They have a couple other prospects. Parker Washington might fill that role. Tinsley's in from Western Kentucky. And on defense, this has been their staple. I mean, that's been their calling card the last 5 years. It's been a strong defense. They lose Brent Pry, who takes over the head coaching role at Virginia Tech. But got to credit James Franklin here for filling that void with Manny Diaz, multi-year head coach and great defensive mind. A similar aggressive mindset. So they're going to try and blitz you guys, bring a lot of disguise coverages, disguise pressures, and try and confuse the air raid attack. But we'll see. I'm fascinated for that opener. I love that it's a Thursday game. And like I said, Penn State fans, they are not overlooking that. Purdue has built up enough respect throughout the conference and around the nation, just how strong they looked last year.
To wrap up the Big Ten East, it's always kind of those 4 schools at the top, and then Indiana, Maryland, and Rutgers kind of clumped together at the bottom. Is there any reason to believe that any of those 3 can make a jump into the top 4 this year?
Well, the only one I'd give a shot at is Maryland. And the reason I say that is because of their passing attack. It looks more like one of the most explosive out there. You have Talia Tagovailoa at quarterback. Of course, that's Tua's brother. He put up a ton of stats and yardage last year. Really only had one bad game. He threw 6 picks against Iowa. You take that out, and it was a really incredible season for him. But not just him; it's the receiver core is absolutely loaded. A couple of 5-star guys like Raheem Jarrett. They also brought in Florida's lead receiver, Jacob Copeland. So it's rare to see Maryland bringing in an SEC #1 receiver. So I think that offense and that passing attack gives them a shot in any game. Do they have the defense to match it? No, not at this point. But they certainly don't have the running game to match it either. But I just think that with that much explosiveness in the pass game, it gives you a shot. Now, I did look at this because you're right that there is a clear divide between the top 4 and the bottom 3 in this division. And even though Maryland made a bowl last year, had the winning record at 7-6, I looked at, hey, how'd they do against that top 4? They lost by an average margin of 32 points against those 4 teams. So there's a massive gap. Maryland might close it a little bit, but I just don't see them breaking through.
Going to be a very interesting year in the Big Ten for sure. Really appreciate you coming on to talk about it today, Brett. Let all the listeners know, how can they get their hands on Pick 6 previews this year?
Yeah, thanks a ton. And again, I have a ton of respect for your program. I got to speak with Coach Brohm on the phone. One of my favorite talks, honestly. He was talking about his offense, how he designed it almost not only to play to the roster strengths, but it really catches the eyes of recruits. I mean, when you're 18 or 17 looking at colleges and offenses, you want to go play in one that's wide open and fun like that one. They see their guys getting drafted and they see all the gaudy passing stats, and it's appealing. And it's certainly working the way that Purdue is stacking recruiting classes, some of the best recruiting they've had over there. Top 25 class in 2019, and I think a pair of top 40s since. So exciting times for Purdue. Again, hated putting them 5th. I think that they could really contend for 2nd place. But yeah, thank you. It's pick6previews.com, at pick6previews on Twitter. And what it is, it's a season preview magazine, just like the ones you see on newsstands. After 10 years of digital only, we're now offering a paper copy. So you order the paper copy, you get both. You get the digital download right away. You get the paper copy sent out next week. And yeah, really excited. Over the first 10 years, we've been graded #1 in prediction accuracy, beating all the ones you see on newsstands, Lindy's, Athlon, Phil Steele, Sporting News. That's #1 over 10 years, over 5 years since in 2020 and in 2021. So it's all on there. I got some testimonials by the College Game Day guys that read it, and the ACC Network crew, and then a couple sample teams too. If you want to see a couple teams before you buy, really appreciate it. And thanks for what you guys do over at Boilers and Beyond. And thanks for having me on.
Brett's got great stuff over there, a great preview of Purdue as well, very detailed. You all will want to check it out. Brett, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Anytime.
Hey, thank you so much to Brett for coming on. He was fantastic. If you haven't ordered Brett's preview guide yet, you're really missing out. Pick6previews.com. Get that digital magazine, get the print version, whatever floats your boat. But it's fantastic. It's one of the more in-depth previews you'll find out there for all of the Power 5 programs. As you heard there, the guy knows his stuff, especially if you're dialed into the gambling aspect of college football, where you're looking for more detailed reports of teams and what they're going to be to get those week 1 lines, get out ahead of those. It's a must-have. It's a great product, and Brett really knows his stuff. And I want to talk my Big Ten thoughts a little bit, and I'm right there with him. It is Ohio State's conference to lose. I was putting the notes together for this episode, and they were sitting at -210 to win the Big Ten, so an overwhelming favorite to win the conference. They should be. That's rightfully so. They are that much more talented than everyone else in the league. I'm looking forward to when 24/7 Sports releases the team talent composite just to see how it stacks up. But I think they may have the 3 best players in the Big Ten all on their offense with C.J. Stroud, Travion Henderson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Those 3 are the best at their positions without a doubt, and they could be the best offensive or even overall players in the Big Ten. They are loaded. I'll be shocked if they don't win the Big Ten. But if they don't, I think behind them, in terms of the pecking order in the East, there's some wiggle room there. I don't love either Michigan schools just because of what they lose from a year ago. Michigan loses those two edge rushers, like Brett said, with Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo, and they lose one of their top running backs, and that's a run-heavy offense. And Michigan State's whole offense, to some degree, was Kenneth Walker III. He moves on. I'm not a big Peyton Thorne believer, and if Michigan's going to roll Cade McNamara out there again this year, I don't know that I feel great about that either. If Sean Clifford can stay healthy and stay productive and avoid some of the issues that have tended to plague him in the past, maybe Penn State can jump up to that number 2 spot in the East. Going to be big time week 1 for them. They need that win just as badly as Purdue does, if not worse. Over in the West, though, it's open at the top. That week 0 game between Nebraska and Northwestern going to be really interesting over in Ireland. I'm looking forward to that. It may not be on your radar yet. It's a week 0 game. Northwestern and Nebraska combined for 5 or 6 wins last year. I don't remember what Northwestern finished at, but they weren't good. I think we're going to learn a ton about both those teams in that game. Northwestern cannot have incompetent quarterback play again. I fear that they will. If they do have lousy quarterback play again, that may just solidify them into last place before the season even starts. Because when Northwestern is good, they have decent quarterback play. They've never had some game changer there, but they have to have solid quarterback play. On the other side, with the Cornhuskers, plenty of drama to go around over there with Scott Frost on the blazing hot seat. How much of an impact do the arrivals of Mark Whipple, the new offensive coordinator, coming from Pitt, and Casey Thompson, the quarterback coming from Texas, how big are those for Nebraska? Are they complete, game changers that really raise the level of that team from what Adrian Martinez provided, which was a roller coaster? I don't know. That's going to be fascinating, though, because I do think we're going to learn a ton about both teams in that game over in Ireland. Nobody's without questions. I think Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois, Northwestern, they all have quarterback questions. Purdue has skill position questions, if you ask me. Not a lot of proven production there. Minnesota lost a lot up front, but it is interesting with them getting Kirk Shiraka back. See if he can rekindle that magic that him and Tanner Morgan had. Who jumps to the top out west? I don't know. I do think Illinois is going to be interesting. They play a smash-mouth, strong brand of football. Now, how well that translates in a league that a lot of teams do that, I don't know. That's kind of why Purdue is so appealing, because they play a different style. That's hurt them in games. They haven't been able to find success against Wisconsin with that, and have struggled against Minnesota with that. But at the same time, they've dominated Iowa with that. They've done really well against Nebraska with that. So it's going to be interesting. If I had to pick right now, I'll take Wisconsin just because they've dominated Purdue. They get Purdue at home. I'd put Minnesota, Purdue, and Iowa right in a group after Wisconsin. And Nebraska is a question mark to me. If there wasn't coaching uncertainty, I would feel better about Nebraska. But with the situation where Frost's buyout, it either drops in October or early November. It drops during the season. If they get off to a rough start, or if there's a coaching change made during that season, then, I think all hope is lost to some degree, and I think they could quit. I don't want to put them up high just because they're the one team that I think has some real quit factor in them. But if Whipple can get the offense going, anything is possible. I don't expect much from Northwestern. Maryland could be interesting Taulia Tagovailoa can really throw the ball. I don't always know what to think, though. They're not the most physical program. Indiana's got to try to bounce back. Connor Bazelak needs to be the savior. And Rutgers is Rutgers. You know, they're in a slow build process. To get them competitive in the Big Ten, boy, that's going to be difficult. That's going to be really difficult. Can't wait to get the Big Ten season going, though. 3 teams playing week 0. You don't see that very often. You get Northwestern versus Nebraska, and then right after that, Illinois and Wyoming. So we're a week closer to Big Ten football than we are week 1. That's going to be exciting. You've got a couple of exciting week 1 games, Purdue, Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Both of those should be really good. Nothing else is jumping to the top of my head for week 1, but can't wait to get it here. We do have Big Ten Media Days, though, to keep us covered. And I don't know about you guys. I love Media Days. I was tuned into SEC stuff last week and enjoyed that. What am I looking to hear at Big Ten Media Days? We know Kevin Warren is going to be the star of the show, the same way Greg Sankey was at SEC Media Days. Everyone wants to talk about expansion or realignment, however you want to phrase that. Myself, I think we're done for the current time. Anything is possible. Sankey made it sound like the SEC is in no position to expand right now. He brought up not wanting to dissolve the ACC. And until their grant of rights gets broken, I think we're probably done. That, of course, is unless Notre Dame decides to move, which it doesn't sound like they are. I would love to hear about the conference's TV negotiations. Again, I doubt we actually hear much there until it's officially announced, but I would love to hear some of that. Kevin Warren's probably going to filibuster quite a bit and not give us a lot of real answers, but he's the one that everyone wants to hear from. What I'm looking for from the Purdue side of things, from Jeff Brohm, he's certainly not a guy who's going to say too much. He keeps things pretty tight, pretty held in, but I'd like to hear him talk about the defensive coordinator transition. Ron English taking over as the play caller for Brad Lambert. Purdue's defense was awesome last year. That was a revelation. A huge part of their success was that defense. I would love to hear him talk about what changes there will be schematically, if any, with Ron English calling the plays. Will there be any philosophical change? I don't think so. Brohm has been very, very open about his desire to have a more aggressive defense that goes and gets the passer, gets the ball back in their offense's hands, instead of that more bend, don't break philosophy that good old Bob Diaco installed in 2020. Will English be in the box, or will he be on the field? This isn't always a question that matters, but if you go back to 2019, when Brohm sent Nick Holt up to the press box and the defense had a second half collapse against Nevada, that was certainly a storyline. So would love to hear an answer there just for the heck of it. This will be a theme coming up in all of my preview episodes, but I want to hear some about the receiver turnover and the outlook at receiver. It doesn't get the attention it deserves, I don't think. The fact that Purdue lost its top 3 receivers, and they were top 3 by a pretty significant margin. Brock Thompson and TJ Sheffield both had surgery after the bowl game. How healthy are they coming into camp? Mershawn Rice and Abdur-Rahman Yassin, they didn't make it to the second half of the season. Rice got hurt against Notre Dame, and Yassin got hurt against Minnesota, maybe. Those guys haven't played in a while, and they've looked good. I'm excited about what they have to offer, but they haven't played in a while. How are they doing? Tyrone Tracy and Charlie Jones transferring in from Iowa. They've got experience. How quickly are they able to get up to speed in a complex offense? Would really like to hear what Coach Brohm has to say about the wide receiver room. And finally, managing expectations. Jeff Brohm came into a program that had really struggled. So early on, he did not have super high expectations placed upon him. What will it look like now that Purdue does have expectations on them, where fans are openly talking about 9 wins? You'll hear fans whisper 10 wins. I think that may be a bit far, but 8-9 wins, that's probably a realistic ceiling. What's it going to look like now that there's a little bit of pressure on Purdue to perform? The player reps, you never really know what you're going to get. Usually not too much, but I would like to hear Jalen Graham talk about his role this season. From what we heard out of spring practice, he was grouped in with the safeties a little bit. I presume he's going to line up in the box still and just play a similar role to what he did last year. He was fantastic last year. I think he was Purdue's second best player on defense behind George Karlaftis. His versatility is such a huge asset. He can cover receivers. He can go get the passer. He's a true sideline to sideline type of guy in the run game. I think maximizing his abilities will be absolutely crucial for this defense to play at the level they need to, because he is that dynamic of a guy. He's really exciting. He's a guy who's going to be in the NFL in a year. But look, in reality, probably not going to hear all that much. It's become a very watered down event. Media days in general have. It's a far more 365 news cycle than it used to be. It's certainly not the days of the SEC Skyriders tour or anything. If anyone says anything controversial at all, never put it past Kevin Warren to say something interesting. But how about Harbaugh or Fleck? If it's going to be a coach, Jim Harbaugh, always a loose cannon. He could always say something. And PJ Fleck, we talked about it on the show recently. He's been accused of some interesting things. Nothing really against the rules, just being crazy by former players. Is that going to come up? You never know. But hey, a week from now, I think it's August 2nd or 3rd, fall camp gets going. Thank goodness. I can't wait. I know there's an open practice on August 5th. So that's always a sign that the season's almost here. The pads will be on, and the team's going to be ready to prepare for Penn State. Next week, we will take a look at some of the biggest questions that Purdue has to answer in fall camp. It's talking season. We are going to keep talking in all of our preview episodes. This is where you need to be for all of your Purdue football preseason content. It's almost here, guys. Stay with me, and we will have you ready for the lights to come on Thursday, September 1st. For this week, however, that's all I have for you. Be sure to join us next week as we go through 10 big questions that Purdue needs to answer during fall camp to get ready for the Nittany Lions. For now, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss anything. Follow along with the show on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. I'll be there in 15 minutes or so from now when I'm recording this, talking Men of Mackey. The conversation never stops on Twitter, especially this time of year. We will have thoughts from media days and far more on the Twitter sphere ahead of next week's episode. So much more to come, guys. I cannot wait for kickoff to get here. But until next week, enjoy the end of summer.